What's up, guys? This is John Vickers, the owner of Explosive Performance Academy and creator of the 5-Star Formula, where we help your athlete become the most elite version of themselves. And this is the Developing the Elite Athlete podcast. And I got a special guest here today, my guy, Marv Fox Jr. What's up, Marv?
Let's not play with the people. Read this our second time.
This is.
Let's just go straight to the question.
All right. So just give a little backstory on you and how you got where you're at now with in terms of basketball and what that looks like, what your journeys look like.
Sure. So I graduated college in 2004, collegiate athlete at Concordia University. And one of my mentors wanted to start a basketball program called Yes Lord. Yes Lord stood for Youth Empowerment System. Lord was leadership, offense, rebounds, and defense. It was a very, very clever concept. We had our tryouts. The talent pool was underwhelming. So we didn't go through with making a team. But out of that pool came a prospect or a person who was interested in one-on-one training. Now, I had never done one-on-one training, but as a collegiate athlete, having played basketball, I love to work out. So I thought, I don't know what I'm doing, but I love to work out. I'm sure I can help out a younger player get better. I started training this kid and realized very, very quickly, I am terrible. Did not understand progression, how to develop talent, how to even teach. There were so many things about development that I wasn't good at, but I loved it. I loved every second of it. So with this kid and maybe a few others, I started doing training, and I'm just kind of fumbling my way through as I was learning how to become an educator of skill, a skills coach. So right at that time, YouTube had just come out. So you could go on YouTube where you can find some things, not a lot, but you can find something. I started getting my hands on DVDs. There was a thing called Better Basketball. Started looking at these Better Basketball DVDs and starting to piece together some idea of how to talk to athletes, how to explain things, and also understanding the necessity to get into the ethos of the athlete to figure out how do they respond to instruction. You know, some people need very, very specific details. Some people, you can give them an overview of a concept, and they can kind of navigate themselves through that, and they prefer to do that. They don't want all the details. They just want a little bit, and then they'll find their way. Whereas some kids, they want exactly how do I do this, you know. So learning all of that and teaching myself how to do things that I couldn't do as a collegiate athlete, I started to develop a style, and that's where I eventually came up with meticulous basketball. And man, I've had some peaks and some peaks and valleys. I've been high, been low, been over here, been over there. But in all of that, it led me to a place where I'm at right now, which is Legacy Sports Center, which is in Brighton, Michigan. And I am the director of everything developmental as it relates to basketball. So every camp, clinic, small group training, individual training, I'm the director of all of that. And so now it's since 2004, been grinding and still learning how to help basketball players become more complete players.
Absolutely. And as I said earlier, like I remember you developing that manual and having a framework for everything, right? That's for me, that was one thing that took me the longest time to think about, was creating frameworks for everything. But
Interesting.
yeah, it did. Like I had everything in place on, like, I knew in my own mind like what needed to happen for things to happen, but I never actually wrote down a framework. That's all changed now, and
Yeah.
understanding how important that framework is. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, looking back, I wish I would have started doing that stuff back when you were doing it and kind of talking to you a little bit more about it. But obviously you got that done back then, or you were working on it back then, back in like 09. And
Me and Avalati helped us out because we had all these manuals. We had all these instruction manuals, all these guides through how how do you run a sports performance session. There's the dynamic warm up. There is the speed and agility portion. There's the weight portion. There's the cool down, the stretching, and all that stuff. Once I saw that, then I started to understand the necessity to have a game plan, man, to have something that would help you with progression, something that would give you the ability to duplicate yourself, right? So I can have this game plan, I can give it to somebody else and have them execute it. Um, you know, I it's funny, you've gotten deeper into that bag. I've gotten away from that bag because so much of my training is instinctive, right? When you do it long enough, you're able to kind of bob and you can weave in and out of a structured curriculum, and you can lean on it and you cannot lean on it, but you can still get that athlete to the same destination, right? And I think that's what happens when you've been doing it for a number of years. But if you really, really want to multiply and you really want to duplicate yourself, you got to have those things in place so that you can have an intern or you can have a coach who's got all the ambition in the world, the high motor, the love, and you could give them that and they can start working with that curriculum and they can start understanding not only what you think is important and what you think is necessary to develop an athlete, but at the same time, they can start developing their own style. That way, and that was the cool thing about Velocity from a sports performance standpoint, you had all these coaches who kind of knew the same thing, but you got different interpretations of that same thing. So you can have a coach who's got a little bit of flair and sauce over here, and this coach kind of focus on that. This person maybe uses their personality to unlock the training, where this person uses their background in track and field to unlock the pro. And so anyway, I've gotten away from that, and I kind of coach my coaches a little bit different, these days. But yeah, that was I didn't even know what I was doing, man. I was just looking at where at Velocity we got all of these tools and all of these resources, and I was trying to build something that looked like Velocity, but for basketball. And yeah, it's kind of funny how you remember that and how I've gotten away from it. But now you're like the king of building infrastructures and systems and programs and whatnot. But yeah, that's something that I think if you really want to take this stuff serious, at some point along the journey, you got to build that out because it's also good for you to see your thoughts on paper,
Mhm.
right? To do that long-winded marathon work of how do I take this concept, put it on paper, and break it down on every single level, so that somebody else can take it and do something with it, and you can refer to it from time to time when necessary.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know for me, like my girls are in dance and cheer and all that stuff. So
Yep.
I spent pretty much all of like April traveling
Yep.
and I wasn't there. So like I had to be able to share s- share a framework, right?
Yep.
So if I have my personal training clients, like I have a coach that can take that and just lay it all out and it's right
Hmm.
there. So it's important, but then it also for me, it allows my clients to kinda see a path of
Yeah.
what they need to accomplish step by step to get to this point, right? So,
Hmm.
um, that's why I've really broken mine down into structures and frameworks like that, for sure.
Yeah. It's necessary, man. And I mean, again, it's good. It's good exercise. It's good exercise. I think back to so many things that I did that at this point I can look back and say, did I really need to do that? But I think some of those creative exercises, coming up with a drill book, just
Mhm.
coming up with a drill book and diagramming all these drills. I start working on. I don't know what I was working on at the time, but I'm taking these different shapes and I'm creating these diagrams that hopefully somebody would use one day. It helped me with my ability to create not only a curriculum from a verbal standpoint, but also from like a what is the word I'm looking for? But creating these diagrams,
Like a
creating these
visual.
diagrams. Yeah, the visual piece. And again, it's one of those things where you realize that as an entrepreneur, you have to be a one-stop shop at the beginning. You got to be a one-stop shop in the beginning. If you got the bread to go pay for somebody to do some graphic design work or some, to do some graphic design work, do it, right? But you kind of miss out on the learning of doing it yourself. It may not be as good as somebody who went to school for that, but it's still necessary. In my little drill book, I had like this forward, right, where I was explaining the necessity for training and why it's important to train in a certain way. Writing out my philosophy gave me an opportunity to think long and hard about, okay, what is my philosophy? What is going to be my approach? What are going to be my pillars? What am I going to lean on when I feel directionless? All these things that I was doing that seemed so necessary then, that I can argue or negotiate. I can argue now. I don't know if it's completely necessary because I don't use all that stuff now. But those are the building blocks that make you an entrepreneur that is complete. And at some point, when you got a little bread to spend, then you can say, okay, I've I've dabbled in all these different aspects of being an entrepreneur. I've gotten to a place where I got some money where I can now pay for somebody to do that, so I can think about the bigger things and focus on the bigger things in terms of being a visionary for my business and not necessarily being an all American who does it all. You know what I'm saying? So
Sure.
yeah, you got to do that stuff at some point because it's what's going to help you become well rounded down the line.
For sure, for sure. And this is this is a concept that I wish a lot of, like, kids, especially college kids, would start to grasp right now with
Hmm.
all the NIL stuff.
Yeah,
And we're kinda going off cusp with this a little bit,
that's fine.
but it's like, if you take advantage if you know how to take advantage of your name, your image, and likeness, you can
Yeah,
make a lot of money.
yep,
But what's going on right now are there's a lot of expectations for companies just come in and offer people money for
yep,
advertisement, where these athletes they have they have a soundboard, right? They have a pedestal that they're standing on. A lot of people
yeah,
are looking up to them. They could easily make money off from offering things based off in their knowledge and creating
yeah,
things like this. Um, I feel like everybody has some form of entrepreneurial spirit.
yeah.
Not everybody is going to most people aren't gonna take advantage of it, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunity for these college kids and now even some high school kids to make money based off from this, and this
I
is
mean
something
that
I'm approaching in mind.
yeah, that literacy, that literacy, that proficiency is this is one of those things where it's like, man, this is just one more thing to learn, and it's a chore, right? And
Yep,
granted, the benefits are great, but how many professional athletes have agents?
yep,
How many of these athletes are actually, Ray Allen, uh, he's represented himself. But I'm sure he had to do a lot of reading. He had to ask a lot of questions. He had to uh, have a lot of moments of insecurity and doubt as he was learning. I'm pretty sure he won't say it, but he lost out on some money and he probably made a little bit of, I mean, I'm sure he made some money, but he probably got his head bumped a couple of times simply because he didn't have all of that. Like the amount of time that he put into his basketball game, somebody's put that amount of time in the law and
mhm,
understanding uh, legal terminology and language and learning the language of the environment, the basketball world, right?
yep,
And so somebody was very, very proficient, has mastered that. He was spending his time working on his jump shot. He wasn't spending his time. So that means that you gotta figure out how much time can I devote to this, and then how much do I need to know so that I can go into this new arena or this ring and be proficient, be effective, not be taken advantage of. And for some people, it's kind of like, all right, I already got to do this stuff over here. I got to be good at the sport thing. Do I want to now understand NIL terminology, language, policy, this, that, and the third? Most kids are like, I'm good. Can you just listen to him and talk? Can you listen to her talk? So you definitely got to have, I think, a stronger entrepreneurial
mhm,
mindset and spiritual setting to even feel like getting into that world. And if you do, you could probably level up in some ways that even the highest talented, like the most, the kid with the most popularity, you can benefit more than them. You dig
Absolutely.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Cause trust and believe, there's some player not LeBron James that will be able to rival LeBron James in terms of money
Mhm.
because they learned the language of business and law, and now they can kind of rival LeBron James on some level because all that money's coming to them.
Yeah.
Versus LeBron's money got to go to all these different people that support him and help him kind of be the mogul that he is and will be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's go back a little bit. What is your philosophy when it comes to basketball development for high school
I
for
want
high
to complete.
school basketball players?
Yeah, yeah. From it doesn't even matter like from top to bottom. Make players complete. Make players complete. So basketball is one of those sports where you kind of got to be able to do everything on some level. You got to be proficient. You know, a quarterback doesn't necessarily have to worry about running routes and blocking. A pitcher doesn't necessarily have to worry about being the best hitter or the best in the outfield or infield or so on and so forth. So I have to be very complete as a trainer to make sure that I can help the kid who wants to work on their jump shot, help the kid who wants to work on their ability to just score the ball. Like there's shooting and then there's scoring, right? I got to be able to help the kid who wants to work on their dribbling, you know what I'm saying? And figure out, okay, well, are you a point guard? Because if you're a point guard, that's a different skill set. You know, you got to bring the ball up. You got to be able to dribble in place while somebody's trying to take the ball from you. Because if you're a point guard, every time somebody pressures the ball, you can't just start dribbling around. There's coaches is running plays, so you got to be able to sit in this. Well, not sit, but you got to stand, be stationary, dribble, protect the ball while all this off-ball action happens. That dribbling skill set is different than a post who's got to make 2 or 3 dribbles around the basket to create a score, and that skill set is different than the wing player who needs to be really proficient with 2 to 3 dribbles, right? So it's being able to be a student of the complete game, help out players who do a lot with the ball, help out players who do a lot without the ball, and make sure that I am speaking to them directly, but at the same time, speaking to the whole group
Mhm.
about all these other skills that they will need at some point. So my whole thing is about how do I make players complete but also speak to the specific areas of their game where they are special that make them unique. You dig what I'm saying? So it's a song and dance that I think I do. I dance it well, but it took me a while to get to the point where I understood kind of what I need to do so that I can be what I need to be for these players and these athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything takes time, it takes learning, it takes progression, it takes development. Not only them, but
Oh,
you.
let me say one other thing. I think that is important too that I've learned as a that I'm learning now. Also, there is the reality that a lot of these kids, because we're in a generation now where everybody's putting their kids in sports. Everybody, sports has been monetized to the point where it's really, really hard to find an organic sport opportunity, right? Kids just don't go to the sandlot and play baseball anymore.
Mhm.
Kids just don't go to the outdoor court and like hoop. Kids just don't find a collection of kids and find a way to play some version of football. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's tackle, whether it's two-hand touch, whether it's, you got a quarterback who's like all-time quarterback. Like those moments don't exist organically in neighborhoods. So everything's monetized. And so because everything is monetized and sports has become so big in our country and our society, you even think about the pandemic, they opened up sports. Y'all gonna play this football. Y'all gonna play this basketball. Y'all gonna play baseball, right? That's what opened up. So it lets you know just how important it is. So now everybody is putting their kids in sports. I think people are putting their kids in sports before they put them in anything else. You got artists that probably don't find their artistry until late in their lives because they're kicking a soccer ball around. You got musicians, you got people who understand wildlife and animals and there's so many different sectors of artistry that has been neglected because we put our kids in the sport before we do anything else, right?
Yep.
And so what happens is kids become conditioned to play sports. But here's the thing that I'm learning: some kids find competitive environments fun, and a lot of kids, they survive competitive environments. They're not having fun; they survived it. Like,
Yep.
I just got through this. And if you put a kid who loves competition, you put them in a grueling game, right? If you gave them the opportunity to do it again, like later on, they'd probably be like, yeah, dude, like, I want to play. Like, did
Yep.
you win? No. Did you even score any points? Nah, but I was out there balling because they find competition fun. We put a lot of kids in competitive environment, and it's not fun to them. They survive it. So another thing that I'm working on is the emotional component of sport, and seeing if I can help a kid have fun, find fun in challenging yourself, uh, challenging yourself against better competition. Like, that person's better than you.
Yeah.
You know you're not better than that person. Can you find the fun in challenging yourself and getting your head cracked, knowing that this guy's better than you, but can you find that fun? You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's making kids complete, but it's also helping kids with the emotional, mental piece, and how are you processing the game emotionally and mentally so that you can get out of this what you need, especially if mom and pops have kind of like let you know this is what we doing.
Yeah.
We doing the sports thing because it's fun to us. So you doing the sports thing. Okay, well, if you're a kid now, how do you exist in that world so you can get something out of it so you're not like traumatized by that whole environment. So I needed to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. And that kind of takes me to this point. Like, when it comes to, like you mentioned, pillars, like, I'm assuming that's one of your pillars. What are your main pillars when it comes to what you do with basketball players?
Well, that's a good question. I used to always say that my pillars were I wanted to focus on these fundamentals of basketball, right? So dribbling, passing, scoring. That encompasses everything that is leading to putting the ball in the hoop. Moving without the basketball and catching. So uh, that's the skill piece. The way in which I train is form first. Form first. So make sure you can do what is required with good form. Um, and if that requires us to be slow, then let's be slow about it. Let's take our time. Then we want to work on speed. Okay, so now that we got our form together, now let's see if you can find your form in being reckless, right? Because that's another way you can challenge a kid emotionally and mentally and physically, right? When you start going super fast and working hard, I mean, you're stressing yourself out.
Mhm.
So the more you stress yourself out, you learn how to deal with that stress. And now all of a sudden you have a more emotionally stable athlete that is not uncomfortable when they get stressed because they do it to themselves. It's like almost like self-inflicted uh, pain. Like, when you do it to yourself enough, you become desensitized to it. And all of a sudden the pain and the stress it's not as disturbing. So let's make sure we're reckless as we attack skill. You start to love it. You start to get to a place where when you are always operating at this breakneck speed, it becomes something that you enjoy enduring. You love it. And then also when we train at breakneck speeds, we learn how to think faster. We learn how to problem solve faster. We learn how to process information faster on a myriad of levels. So there's the form piece. There is the necessity to train at breakneck speed, right? So there's the speed piece. And then also the last piece of it is the contact. Now, can you do all the stuff you've been doing with somebody leaning on you? You know what I'm saying? Because not every athlete likes contact. You know what I'm saying? There's some physical receivers out there love the contact.
Yep.
There's some receivers that don't want the contact. Deion Sanders, even though I know there are people who are much more relevant than him as players, he never struck me as a guy who was a hard hitting cornerback, right?
Yep.
But he could always get the job done. But I'm pretty sure you could tell me there's some other cornerbacks that, dude, they gonna knock you the hell out if they get their hands on you. So it's trying to help a kid understand. Listen, I know you're not a physical guy or a physical athlete, but we got to be physical on some level. Like, we can't play a game where you're not touched. So how do you take that athlete and introduce them to this concept of physicality, and how do you help them develop a certain level fair with physicality on a base level, so that they're not completely like anti don't touch me. They just don't touch me. You dig what I'm saying? So for me, pillars are, I'm gonna develop them with form first, speed second, contact last, and then all of that still working on that emotional and mental piece.
Okay. I love it. I love it. That's, I mean, obviously you've been working on that for a while, so, and you've seen some success with it, and it's
It's a good
helped.
question. I'd almost have to remember like that. That's almost one of those things where when you've been doing it for so long, it's always present,
Mhm.
but you forget because you're not talking about it. Like when I was first coming up, I talked about this ad nauseum. Everything that I wrote, every promotion that I wrote, every flyer that I created, every time I was selling myself to a parent, I was using these terms and these uh, describing my process in this way. And now that I'm so far removed from that, I had to remind myself that's my process. You dig what I'm saying? But that was a good question.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So what is you got a kid that comes to you, good player, has potential to play D1 ball and potentially even past that. What is one piece of advice that you would give this kid to make sure that they do make it and they
Hmm.
don't sit back
The
and
main, yeah, the two things I would tell that kid is, number one, you compete only with yourself. You only compete with yourself. Competition with yourself is the highest form of competition. It has nothing to do with the opposition. The competition is really a formality. It's a formality. Like, they're there because you have to prove to yourself that you're good. So you need something to help you figure this out. You need something there to help you measure if you are actually as good in reality as you are in your mind. Right now, these days, I don't play any basketball. I'm not in any men's leagues. I go to the gym and I work out like I'm about to go to a men's league, and I just work on myself. I
Mhm.
just work on going to certain spots and showing myself I can get to this spot and shoot it 5 times in a row, make it 10 times in a row. So for active athletes, trying to get them away from comparing themselves to anybody else and get them away from uh, making the game about someone else and making it all about them and what they should be doing for themselves and their team. That's the first part, which is tough because when you're in a competitive environment, you always think you should be going after someone else. But the greats will tell you, they will tell you, I was never going after them. I was going after this idea of who I felt I could be.
Mhm.
That's the first thing. The second thing is, at some point when you do like compete, not in a formal setting, right? So not in a game setting. When you're competing, competition has to become like, going to an open gym has to become more of a job, right? Where you're like, I just worked on my two dribble pull up going to the left. In this open gym, that's all I'm going to focus on. I'm going to get stops. People are going to be able to figure out what I'm doing. They're going to be beating me to the spot before I get there. People are going to talk crazy to me because I'm not going to have a good game because I'm using one tool out of my toolbox. The opponent might be using their whole toolbox. I'm using one. So I'm going to experience some failure, a lot of failure. But if I can figure out how to get my shot off going left after two dribbles, when my defender knows it's coming, and I can even make shots even when the defender knows what's coming, even though the defender knows what I'm about to do. At some point now, I got a go-to move. I'll become unstoppable because now I can tell somebody, hey, I'm gonna go right over there. I'm gonna take 2 dribbles. You can meet me over there if you want to. It don't matter. I'm still about to make this bucket on you. And so getting athletes to get away from, you can't just be playing just to play. You have to play with an agenda. And if you decide you just want to hoop, okay, that's cool. But make sure you come into that floor, you come on that floor with intentions to just have fun. Because at some point when you get serious about the game, it's a game, but it's not anymore.
Yeah.
It's this is your career, this is your job, so you need to treat it as such. And anytime, like, games are for when you got joysticks and you playing 2K. This game with this ball in your hand and it's 9 other guys on the court and you the 10th man, that's no longer a game. This is work. So now treat it as such so that you can make sure that your training translates to the game, not only in an open gym setting, but also in a formal setting
100%. Be intentional with what you're doing.
at all times. At
For
all
sure,
times.
for sure. Well, I mean, this has been awesome, Marv. Tell the listeners how they can connect with you if they want to get some basketball work in. How do they become part of Meticulous Basketball?
Yeah, so you got 2 ways. If you go to I got two pages on Instagram. I think it's underscore this is bad. Uh you underscore meticulous basketball training. Underscore meticulous basketball training on Instagram. You can connect with me there. And if that doesn't work because I gave you the wrong handle, because I'm an idiot, you could also connect with me at Speak on Purpose. Speak on Purpose is where I do all of my purpose coaching. But if somebody were to contact me that way and wanted to get involved, wanted training, I'll definitely send them to the right lane so that we can get into the gym, and get some work in, man.
Okay, I'll link you in this, but it's Meticulous
Thank you.
Basketball underscore training. I got you. I got
I'm
you.
an idiot. It's all good. Appreciate you.
You're good. It's all good. It happens. Yes. So I appreciate this, Marv. I appreciate your time. Um, man, like you're killing it. I've obviously seen you grow throughout the years, and I was happy when you got this whole legacy
Yeah,
legacy
dude.
position. So you just got to
When
run with it now.
when the time is right, let's connect again because I think the, the at training the athlete piece, I think there's a lot of little nuggets and jewels that we could probably share from our experiences about what parents need to be talking to their athletes about, what how parents can better support their kids, how kids can support their parents because you don't start off. No 9-year-old is like funding their training. You know what
No,
I'm saying? Most of the times it's parents doing that. So, and even as they get into adolescent years, there's ways in which kids can support their parents and making sure that it's truly a collaborative effort to make sure that both parties are doing everything they can to make this the most effective, most successful ride possible. So whenever the time is right, let's continue the conversation.
absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you guys all for listening. Hey, if you want to connect with me, you can connect with me at XP or Explosive Performance Training on Instagram. And make sure you grab your free copy of our 5-star formula accelerator kit at this is a long one. It's www.xpafoundations.com/5-star formula accelerator kit. We're
Damn.
we're going to break down the entire 5-star formula and how to help you become the best athlete that you can possibly be. Make sure you leave a review, like this, and subscribe. Have a great one.